بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد على قدرهم بك فيه. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد على قدر ناتك به. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد حق قدر مقداره. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلاة تنجينا بها من جميع الأهوال والآفات، وتقضي لنا بها جميع الحاجات، وتطهرنا بها من جميع السيئات، وترفعنا بها أعلى الدرجات، وتبلغنا بها أقصى الغايات من جميع الخيرات في الحياة وبعد الممات. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلاة الرضا، ورد عن أصحابه رضا والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. So we left off speaking about the four necessary attributes of the Prophets Alaikum Jamian, which were amana, sidq, fatana, and tabligh. Okay, amana, which is fulfilling the trust, sidq, which is truthfulness, fatana, which is intelligence, and tabligh, which is conveying everything that they were commanded to convey. Alayhim Asalaam Jami'an. So specifically, the amana, it's defined. It's Imam Sawi says, for example, rahimahullah, al-amana hiya hifdhu dhawahirihim wa bawatinihim fi halat al-sighari wal-kibari qabla al-nubuwati wa ba'daha an al-talabbusi bimanhiyan anhu walau khilaf al-awla. It is the amana, the fulfillment of the trust, is the protection, hifth, of their outward as well as their inward, of their outward as well as their inward. So you have outward contraventions of the sacred law, which is, for example, if someone were to not pray, or if someone were to, not fast without a valid excuse, or if someone were to backbite, etc. And then the inward contraventions, like such as envy, arrogance, ujub, narcissism, etc. So both of those, the outward contraventions, inward contraventions, they do not occur with Prophets ﷺ, because they have this protection. And then he says, fi halat al-sighr wal kibr, both in youth as well as adulthood. Okay, so as children as well as adults. قبل النبوة وبعدها, before prophecy and afterwards. Before prophecy and afterwards. عن التلبس بمنهي عنه ولو خلاف الأولى. What are they preserved from? تلبس to the committing of an interdicted act, منهي عنه ولو خلاف الأولى, even if it were merely preferable to avoid. Even an act that is preferable to avoid. Khilaf al-awla. It's not even at the level of makruh, of disliked, but something that's just better not to do. But then they add, لكن قد يقع منهم المكروه وخلاف الأولى لا على وجههما بل على وجه التشريع. However, something makruh in the sharia, something that is disliked according to the sharia, or khilaf al-awla, which is less severe, just preferable to avoid, could occur with a prophet, alayhim salam jami'an, not la ala wajhihima, not in and of itself as it could with a regular believer, bal ala wajh at-tashri', but rather for the sake of legislation. So a prophet might do something that's disliked in the sharia, but it's legislative, i.e. it's done to show that it's not haram. Okay, because if the prophet were not to do that, then the community might consider an act haram, that the prophet never did it ever. And so a prophet might do something once or twice just to show that this is permissive. It's not a completely unlawful act, even though it's better to avoid or even disliked. Okay, and they give examples. There's sahih hadith about, for example, drinking while standing. This is an example that's used, which the fuqaha consider better to avoid. Or, for example, urinating while standing, also according to the Hanafis, better to avoid. but again, to show that these are permissible. They're not unlawful. Or for example, doing wudu with washing only once. There's hadith about that. Or washing only twice, because the sunnah is 3 times, but this was done once or twice just to show that it's permissible. It's not something haram. So this is the amana, and a synonym for this is isma, which is infallibility. This is the infallibility of all of the prophets alayhimus salam jami'an. The proof for this is basically so for these 4 attributes of prophets alayhimus salam, the 4 necessary attributes of prophets alayhimus salam jami'an, that the proofs are logical but based off of premises which are derived from revelation. Okay, so this is a big discussion in theology. Is the proof aqli or shar'i? Is it something that's logical or simply stated in revelation? Well, so because what we covered, if you recall, in the ilahiyat, in the metaphysics of the dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the proofs for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's necessary attributes were all aqli. They were logical, except for 3 of the sifatul ma'ani, which ones? Sama', basar, kalam. Okay, speech, hearing, sight. Speech, hearing, sight. That the proofs for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech, hearing, and sight were fundamentally because revelation stated it. So it's a dalil shar'i. So with the attributes of prophets alayhimus salam jami'an, that they are the premises that are the foundations for the proofs are shar'i. They're taken from revelation, but then these attributes which are derived from them are presented through syllogisms. So it's kind of both. But it ultimately goes back to the legislative or the revelation-based proofs. Another aspect of it is also ijma'. Okay, so the consensus of the scholarly community. The consensus of the scholarly community is also used here in this discussion. So the the basic proof for the amana is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in many verses of the Quran and through many ahadith, prophetic ahadith, Allah has commanded us to follow the prophets. Okay, we are commanded to follow the prophets. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبُكُمُ اللَّهُ. Say, if you really love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَاتَّبِعُونِي. This is in the Western breakdown of verbs. It's a form 8, which is not simply to follow, but ittiba. So taba is to follow. Ittiba is to wholeheartedly follow. Okay, to wholeheartedly follow. There's a mubalagha, there's an exaggeration in that verb itself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتْبَعُونِي. If you love Allah, then just generally follow me. No, fattabi'uni, and even the sound of the word, there's a shadda there, and the shadda in Arabic has shidda. The shadda has strength, has intensity. So and there's a lot of, Arabic is amazing because when you say it, you have to have a bit of intensity to get through the word. Fattabi'uni, which also suggests that that we're commanded to wholeheartedly follow the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but that there's also effort in doing that. It's not something that just it's easy, and no, there's a tremendous struggle in ultimately subduing this tendency inside of us that doesn't like to listen. So fattabi'uni yuhibbukum Allah, and then if you do so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself will love you all. So, and there's many verses in the Quran. Allah ta'ala says that وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. My mercy encompasses every single thing. فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِنَا يُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ يَتَّبِعُونَ الرَّسُولَ النَّبِيَّ الْأُمِّيِّ. So, tremendous ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, my mercy encompasses kulla shay, wasi'at kulla shay, every single thing. And then Allah ta'ala says, فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا, so I shall write it. If it's already permeating the cosmos, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala write it for some particular? If it's a universal mercy, rahmati wasi'at kulla shay, فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا, that there's the general mercy that is intuited from the name Ar-Rahman, the universal mercy for the cosmos, regardless of creed, regardless of belief, regardless of state, regardless of action, regardless of ethics, regardless of, the rain pours on the good and the bad, and the rain and the fruits grow for the good and the bad, and the lungs are expanding and contracting for the good and the bad, and sometimes they don't. Allah gives illness to the good and the bad. So the rahmah that's intuited from Ar-Rahman is the universal mercy in this life. But then there's a specific mercy for the people of sound creed, for the people of sound ethics, for the people of sound ittiba of the messengers alayhimus salam, which is in the akhirah, predominantly. And this is the rahmah that's intuited from the name Ar-Raheem. Al-Raheem, the rahmah that's intuited from that is for the Ahlillah and the Ahlul Iman and the Ahlul Taqwa and the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Akhirah, which is ultimately manifested in paradise, and then ultimately لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَى وَزِيَادَةً, what is above and beyond paradise itself, which is the beatific vision of our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then, and that we say predominantly because when we take those steps towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we experience some of that mercy in this life as well, right? It's not only limited to the akhirah. The rahmah that's intuited from the name Ar-Rahim is also dunyawi. And this is why, for example, Ibn Ta'ala says that, rahimahullah, Jalla Rabbuna an yu'amilu al-abdu naqdan fayujaziyahu nasi'atan. Okay, that Jalla Rabbuna, our Lord, is far too tremendous and magnificent and majestic and awesome that the servant should deal with Allah naqdan, with cash. You do your deed in time, right then, payment done, prayed salat. فَيُجَازِيَهُ نَسِيئَةً, and then Allah should reward him in credit. Now I owe you. You get this much in Jannah, right? Our Lord is far too great. Our Lord is far too great to simply wait, to have us simply wait till the akhirah. So and this is something that we also have to struggle to open our eyes to, is to perceive the fruits of our efforts immediately, because they're there. And the more we have a husn dhan, the more that we have a good intuition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of immediate benefit, the more inshallah he will show us these benefits. And there's an entire cosmos of meanings that we're oblivious to, but that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens for people that are struggling to intuit it and that are really working on themselves. And and a small example is just the ladha of ibadah, just the delight that the awliya of Allah ta'ala have in their devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That there's narrations of Allahu alam if it's marfu', but the early Muslims would quote it, that whoever lowers his gaze from seeing someone, if a young man lowers his gaze from seeing a woman he shouldn't look at, then Allah will create a new ladha in his devotion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create a new delight in that person's worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so there's many metaphysical realities that are immediately given to us, inshallah, for our efforts to serve Allah ta'ala. But in any case, فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا, of course the ultimate manifestation is in the akhirah. And so I shall write it, I shall prescribe this the specific mercy of the believers. For whom? لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ, for those that have taqwa, وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ, those that give the zakat, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِنَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, those that are certain in our signs. الَّذِينَ, now look at this, يَتَّبِعُونَ, again, intensely follow, and we're highlighting this because it has to do with the amana. Ar-Rasul al-Nabi al-Ummi, the messenger, the prophet, the unlettered one. And this is of Allah's praise for our beloved messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that his ummi, his being an ummi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his being unlettered, is a tremendous honor and praise for him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because it's an indication of his rank, that he is the closest to Allah, and that anything that comes from him, whether speech, action, state, affirmation, confirmation, etc., is from the divine. That he is literally a window to the divine pleasure on earth. He is literally a window to the divine pleasure on earth, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning that that nothing is from his own accord. وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى, that he does not speak on his own accord. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى, it is nothing but revelation sent down. So that's actually a tremendous praise of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that his being and ummi, and the way Allah Ta'ala worded it in this verse, الَّذِينَ يَتَّبِعُونَ, those who their whole passion, the qibla of their hearts are in what? Seeking every detail of this man, Ar-Rasul al-Nabi al-Ummi. I mean, it's the third of the descriptions. You know, the messenger, the prophet, the one that what you know of his outward gives you certainty of his inward. What you know of his outward gives you certainty of his inward, that all of this knowledge, all of this wisdom, all of this, etc., sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, and then when we reflect on the Sahaba, that look at the deen of the Sahaba, look at the way they would practice this religion, that they would take this ittiba so seriously, they would take this wholehearted, genuine seeking of following him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with such intensity, that the moment anything happened from the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was no hesitation, there was no tawaqquf, there was no taraddud, there was no let me just wait to see how this plays out. This is important when discussing the amana, is that a prophet is amongst followers that are commanded by God to seek out every state, action, occurrence, word, deed of that prophet. And so they have to have this amana. They have to have this amana, because if the door is open that they could maybe sin and then make tawbah and get corrected, then that means that for a certain amount of time people would fall into sin, that Allah would open a door that because they're being followed, and so others would follow into that sin, and then it would have to all get fixed. And this is undermining the very foundation of our religion. This is undermining the very foundation of religion itself. And this is the balanced approach, because you look, you have ifrat and tafrit. You have the extreme overpraise of prophets and the extreme undervaluing of prophets. What's the overpraise of prophets? Is to deify them. The overpraise of prophets is to deify them. Because as long as a person doesn't reach that level of deifying them, then they can be praised as much as we want. We can praise them as much as we want. There's no harm, because no matter how much we praise them, it's not going to match an iota of the divine praise for them. No matter how much we, if we gather together and tell stories of the prophets and send salawat on the prophets and, sing anashid of the prophets, etc., 70 years of how many times we do it, and it's all finite, contingent from souls that are tainted with whatever we have, our own personal struggles, and etc. How does it match when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ, we have raised your remembrance? When Allah says, that all of these ayat of praise of the Prophet ﷺ, and by extension all of the prophets and messengers. So that's the ifrat. The ifrat is to go too far. What's going too far? Is to deify them. Okay, going too far is to deify them. Because within creation, they are the best of creation. This is in our aqidah. They are better than the angels. They are better than the best of the angels. The prophets and messengers, without exception, are the best of creation. Okay, so aside from Creator, aside from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, none are better. So there's only one boundary that we cannot step over in terms of going too far with the prophets, which is to deify them. And this was a mistake. This was the mistake of dalala, of the dalleen, of the, those that deified their prophet. The mistake of the al-maghdub alayhim, those that have Allah's wrath on them, is tafrit, is not giving them their due. It's to say they can do kaba'ir. It's to say, it's ridiculous that in the Old Testament you find that, one of them, a'udhu billah, I don't even want to say the name of who they ascribe this to, that, was found drunk and naked in a garden vineyard or whatever. I mean, to what extent the level of tafrit, of falling short in the rank of a prophet, and so this is the tafrit, and this is so one is dalala, one is just being off, the other is maghdub alayhim, that the wrath of God is upon them. And so we have, again, in every issue that we've studied in our theology, we find that the way of the Muslims, the dominant way of the people of the Sunnah and the people of the majority, is ummat wasat, that we are in the middle of these extremes, and each extreme has a filthy metaphysical repercussion. It's metaphysical filth. Bayni farthin wa damin labanan khalisan sa'igan lisharibin. Between, Allah brings out between two types of filth within the cattle, between whether it's feces or blood. What does Allah bring out in the physical realm? Pure, unadulterated, pristine milk that is easy to swallow, and that is nourishing, and that flows down, sa'igan lisharibin, for those that shall drink it. Metaphysically as well, that our creed it's always the balanced way. And so that the amana, that when we look at the way that the Sahaba were, that the moment the Prophet ﷺ would do something, they would have an intensity of grabbing that, of emulation, of emulating it without hesitation. And that they say that, they mention that to the extent that, when the best of creation ﷺ shaved his blessed hair ﷺ after finishing the Umrah, or even in Hudaybiyah without having gone for the Umrah, that they say كاد يقتل بعضهم بعضا من شدة الازدحام على الحلاق عندما رأوه صلى الله عليه وسلم. Literally, some of the Sahaba were about to kill each other, because of the crowding, the shiddat al-izdiham, the overcrowding of trying to get that hair, and so again they would be focusing on the manner of his sitting. Just read the Shama'il, the manner of his blessed sitting, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the manner of his blessed sleep, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the manner of his blessed eating, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so, to ascribe to him, Ibn Umar would turn about Ibn Umar, Allah be pleased with him, and his father, would turn about his camel in a particular place, and they would ask him why. He said, I saw the Prophet ﷺ do the same thing, and the thing he was going around was not even there anymore, but just this is the way they were. We have to appreciate this. This is central in our discussion. The Sahaba were, the level of intensity they had in emulation. Tuba lil ghuraba. I mean, it's considered odd for anyone else. It's considered odd. It's strange. It's a strange thing. They were for what we're used, for the mentality that we're used to in the modern world, they would be considered majaneen. And I say this as a praise of them, because the mentality of the modern world is majnoon. That's the majnoon. They are upright and of pure, sound, correct intellect. But today's lens is so corrupted that they would be seen as majaneen. One of the Sahaba, he literally rode into the ocean on his horse. This is narrated. He literally rode into the ocean on his horse, and Allah created a karama that the horse was able to ride the ocean. His name is Al-Ala Al-Hadrami. Al-Ala Al-Hadrami. Allah be pleased with him. They mentioned this narration. He's the brother of the Amr Al-Hadrami. In the first pre-Badr, when Abdullah ibn Jahash, Allah be pleased with him, when he went out in the Sariya, and it was the last day of Rajab, the sacred month, and he was only supposed to, he was told to bring the news, but he found that this is an opportunity to take revenge on Quraysh, and so he made it an ijtihad, because he said, if I wait till the morning, that the sacred month is over, but they will have gotten back to Makkah by then. So he went ahead and they ambushed and they took 2 prisoners and they killed one of the Makhzumis of Quraysh. So the one that they killed, the first Qurayshi to be killed by the Muslims after the Hijrah, was Amr al-Hadrami. So his brother Ala al-Hadrami was a Sahabi. And they say about him that he literally rode into the ocean for the sake of Allah. And Allah allowed him to. So my point is that they were Naam. Sayyidina Umar said to the black stone, I know that you're but a stone, that you create no benefit nor harm, and if it weren't for the fact that I saw the Messenger ﷺ kiss you, I would not have kissed you. If it weren't for the fact that I saw them, it's intense. I mean, Sayyidina Umar did not want to even kiss the black stone. I mean, his tawheed was so intense. We have to understand. His tawheed was, because he said the black stone can't do anything. Abu Bakr would not take medicine. The medicine can't do anything. Nothing, we've studied this, nothing can do anything unless Allah. But they were realized in these meanings. And so one of the Salaf, he would not eat watermelon because he said, I don't know how the Prophet would eat it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the state of their ittiba. And so this is what our masters say, the nature of the Sahaba in their intensity of following the Prophet ﷺ is known daruratan. Ma'lum min din as-salaf daruratan. This is what they say. It's necessarily known of the way of the practice of the early Muslims. And so Imam Sanusi says, وَلَا شَكَّ أَنَّ هَذَا دَلِيلٌ قَطْعِي إِجْمَاعِي عَلَى إِسْمَتِهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم. You see, this is the point. Why were we saying all of this? Why are we mentioning these narrations? Because Imam Sanusi says there is no doubt then that this is an absolute, by consensus, proof of the divine preservation, infallibility of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وفي معناه عصمة سائر الرسل عليهم الصلاة والسلام من جميع المعاصي, and by extension, this would entail the infallibility of all of the prophets and messengers, min jami' al-ma'asi wal-makruhat, from every single act of disobedience or offensive. Makruh is something disliked, i.e. offensive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa naf'alahum alayhi salam, and that their actions da'iratun bayn al-wajib wal-mandub wal-mubah, that all the actions of prophets are either wajib, they're doing something that's fulfilling an obligation, mandub, recommended, or merely permissible. And that even the mubah, this is by looking at it from the outward, but every act of mubah of theirs is actually mandub, because they would have the intention of doing it for the sake of Allah. So eating is mubah, but the Prophet ﷺ never ate except with the intention of drawing nearer to his Lord. Sleeping is mubah, but the Prophet ﷺ never slept except with the intention of drawing near to his Lord. And so in reality, all of their actions are either wajib or mandub. All of the actions of prophets are either obligatory, they're fulfilling obligations, or they're doing recommendations. And they say that this is not far-fetched at all, because they say the least of the awliya is like this with the mubahat. The least of the awliya, of the elect of Allah, are conscious of that their mubahat are done for the sake of Allah. And so then what about the prophets? And that even when they, like we said, that at times they would do things that by Sharia are makruh, but they would do it with the intention of what? Tashri', legislation, which is type of ta'lim. type of teaching. And they say that وَنَاهِيكَ بِمَنْزَلِةِ قُرْبَةَ التَّعْلِيمِ وَعَظِيمِ فَضْلِهَا, and reflect now of how great a deed it is in drawing near to Allah to teach sacred law. So even when they're doing something that on the outward is makruh, they get the reward and the rank of teaching sacred religion, sacred tradition. And so this is another consideration is the Maturidis. Some of the Maturidis, they cite the ayah as well in Surah An-Nisa verse 165, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the messengers, and he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, rusulan mubashirina wa mundhirin, great messengers, because it's tankir yadullu ala ta'zim. Rusulan, it's indefinite, it's indicative of majesty and veneration. Rusulan, venerated, honorable messengers. Mubashirina wa mundhirin, giving glad tidings and warning. Look at now, Allah Ta'ala says, لِأَلَّا يَكُونَ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى اللَّهِ حُجَّةً. The result of which is that, so the existence of these messengers results, what's that? What's the consequence of this? أَن لَا يَكُونَ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى اللَّهِ حُجَّةً. That people have no hujjah against Allah. That people have no hujjah against Allah. And then the ulama say, rather Allah has hujjah against people. So they say that reductio ad absurdum, if it were conceivable that a prophet could commit a sin, okay, then the hujjah is not fulfilled. Then the hujjah is lost. So this is Allah's hujjah against us. This is Allah's hujjah against people. And this is preventing us from having a hujjah. If a prophet could sin, khalas, then the human could have a hujjah against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll do questions at the end, inshallah. You could just... So now, looking at some of the, there's certain texts then, and there's so many, mashallah, obviously we don't have the time to discuss all of them, but just a couple, inshallah, because looking at some of the texts of the Quran and Sunnah, the outward of which could cause a misunderstanding of sin, the outward of which could be misleading, such that a person incorrectly ascribes a type of sin to a prophet. And so again, just like with the verses, the ambiguous verses, mutashabihat, with respect to Allah Ta'ala, the outward of which could suggest corporeality or possessing, being in time and space, possessing limbs, what was the way of Sunni Islam to deal with those texts? Yeah, so what was the common denominator that all of Sunni Islam had? Ta'wil, ijmali. So there's a general ta'wil of the outward. It cannot mean what the outward would suggest. Either leave it alone, tafweed, or go ahead and provide a sound interpretation based off of language and context. Ta'wil, tafsili. Same thing here. Okay, so if there's certain texts of the Quran and Sunnah that would suggest ascription of sin to a prophet, then we know that it cannot be taken at face value in terms of actual sin. What does it mean? Either we consign it to Allah, or we, meaning our ulama, or the ulama provide an explanation that is sound linguistically and contextually. So, quick example, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, in Surah Yusuf, Allah Ta'ala describes that, intense encounter between the wife of the wazir and our master Yusuf alayhi salam. And so Allah Ta'ala says, وَهَمَّتْ bihi, that she desired him. وَهَمَّتْ bihi, she desired him. And because of what we're going to explain from the ulama, that this is where the waqf should be. The stop in tajweed should be after that, because the rest of it says, وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا أَنْ رَأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا أَنْ رَأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. Hamma bi is to desire. So wahammat bihi, she desired him. And Allah Ta'ala, describing Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, says the outward of which people could say, وَهَمَّ بِهَا, he desired her. Then it says, لَوْلَا أَنْ رَأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّي, were it not for the fact that he witnessed the proofs, the clear proofs of his Lord. Were it not for the fact that he witnessed the clear proofs of his Lord. This, the ulama say, some of the mufassirin say, this is an example of taqaddum and ta'akhur. This is the end part coming first, and this is done in Arabic, the end part coming first and the beginning coming second, i.e. you have to switch it. Were in understanding, were it not for the fact that he was witnessing the clear signs of his Lord, the clear proofs of his Lord's existence and tawheed, hamma biha, he would have desired her, i.e. he is human. He has all the faculties that a human being has in terms of physical faculties. He's a human, alayhi salatu wasalam. He's not an angel from the outward. But this is confirming his isma. This is confirming Allah's protection of the prophets. Is that Allah was revealing himself subhanahu wa ta'ala in the tajalli of his tawheed, with the theophany of his pure oneness, such that all of the prophets could not see Allah's oneness. They could not be witnessing the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were constantly witnessing the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is saying that were it not for the fact that he was in that state, yes, he's human, he would have. But so he never had a desire for her. He never had a desire for her, alayhi salatu salam. This is part of their isma. And this is valid in Arabic. This tafsir. And similarly, that with Ibrahim alayhi salam, okay, the thalath kadibat, the hadith mentions that the three tiny lies, that we don't believe that in a literal manner, that they were not actual lies. And so, for example, when he says inni saqim, so all of the people of the town, he was young, alayhi salam, some tafsir say 16 years old when he broke the idols. So in the nature of that society, all of them were there devoted to their idols. He could not have done that had they all been there. And so when they were all going to go out for a big festival to celebrate their idols, and so he wanted to stay back to break the idols, alayhi salatu salam. So they said, why aren't you coming? So he says, inni saqim, I am ill. So that's considered one of those three. And so then they allowed him to stay back, and he was able to break the idols, alayhi salatu salam. So, and this, you have to also remember their fatana. We're talking about the traits of prophets. They were, no human is as intelligent as the prophets, alayhi salam. They are the most intelligent, sharp, brilliant human beings, and of all creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alayhi salam jami'an. So you can appreciate the fatana in the stories of the prophets, alayhi salam jami'an. So Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam stays back. So okay, inni saqim, technically he wasn't actually ill, but this is called this is the the ta'rid, which is basically to do a play on words where you're intending a true meaning, but you're presenting it in a situation such that it would be understood with another meaning. So a term or a phrase that has more than one meaning, you're intending one particular meaning, which is true. But because of the equivocation, it has a possible second meaning, which is the other person understands. And so they assume that. And this is allowed in Sharia, it's completely halal, especially if there's a need. And narrations that say that inna fil ta'arid manduha, you have flexibility, you have a way out with this type of equivocal usage. So like some of the Salaf would do this, like someone would come knocking on their house and they're busy, they have hadith to memorize and work to do and devotion, and so someone's knocking that they know that this person just wants to take up their time, it's not like a real need. So they would tell like the servant, they would like point to part of the house and say, tell him he's not here. So the servant, he's not here, intending that spot. This is done in the, we can't make a habit of this just, they say when there's a need, then it's not disliked, okay? Otherwise, it's disliked. But if there's a need, if there's a maslahah, if there's a benefit, it's not disliked. And you have a way out with this. So, inni saqim, I am sick, i.e., there's many interpretations. There's a lot of ta'wilat. Qadi Iyad in the Shifa goes through so many examples that the Salaf mentioned. This is not like some late scholar just theorizing. This is inheritance from the early masters. Some of them said that the human by nature is saqim, because the body, it's like the law of entropy. We're heading towards death. Allah Ta'ala says about the Prophet innaka lamayyitun. Okay, when Allah revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, verily you are mayyit, was the Prophet ﷺ dying at that time? No, but it means you are going to die, and the human body by its nature is in that direction. So it is, in a sense, dying. We're heading towards our ultimate departure from this world. So inni saqim, for example, my body is ill in the sense that that's where it's going. So that's a true statement. Or for example, inni saqim, I'm sick of your kufr. Some of them said that. I'm sick of your idols. I'm sick of all the shirk. So there's a ta'wilat. When he said, alayhi salam, about his wife, when they traveled and then the king was going to take, he wanted to take Sarah alayhi salam, that for his vile intention, then he knew that he said that he's her husband, he would have been killed. So he says that hiya ukhti, she is my sister. And he later clarified that's valid at ukhti fil Islam. She's my sister in Islam as believers. And Allah Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala says, innamal mu'minuna ikhwatun. All believers are brethren. And so even husband and wife within Islam are brethren in faith, brother, sister in faith. And then the, hada rabbi, when the star goes up, hada rabbi. Okay, obviously, Ibrahim AS is not going to say, this is my Lord, as a, meaning this is what he, for someone, and this is what they say. They say that this is the danger. Remember, we did last class, we did the 6 or 7 foundations of Kufr and Biddah. What was the 6th one? Open the notes, bismillah. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What was the 6th one? At-tamassuk bi dhahir al-kitab sunnah, is to hold fast to the outward apparent meaning of the kitab and sunnah, especially with mutashabihat, especially with ambiguous verses that are theologically very, very, central. At-tamassuk, and then bidun qawaid aqliya wa at-tamakkun bil-lisan al-arabi, or kama qalu, and without having a strong foundation in logic, understanding fallacies, understanding incorrect logic, incorrect reasoning, as well as not having a mastery of the Arabic language, right? This is a foundation of kufr. This is a door to kufr, okay? And as well a door to bid'ah. When you're dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a door to kufr or bid'ah. And when you're dealing with the Prophet ﷺ, a door also to bid'ah, certainly, and perhaps even kufr. So, to say that a prophet would commit shirk and then make tawbah, and then, this is something that we have to close that door. And this would be based on tamassuk bi dhahir, like holding fast to the outward. Oh, he said, hada rabbi. He said, this is my Lord, with regards to the stars. No. They say this is the tafsir of that, the ta'wil of that, is there's an understood istifham. There is an implicit istifham. And it's not the istifham of asking a question, it's the istifham of rebuke. Okay, and this is done in Arabic all the time and even in English. So for example, someone says, this is our Lord, and you say, this is my Lord. This is my Lord. Like what a preposterous statement you're making. What a disgusting statement you're making. This is my Lord? What's the ta'wil? Is this my Lord? Like, are you trying to put forth such an obscene suggestion? So istifham at-tawbikh, it's an implicit question by way of rebuke and censuring the absurdity of what's put forth. And so, this is our interpretive tradition. And with Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, with his qatil, with the one that that was killed from his wakaz. So, Imam Sanusi says, وَأَمَّا خَبْرُ مُوسَى عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ مَعَ قَتِيلِهِ الَّذِي وَكَزَهُ فَقَدْ نَصَّ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَلَى أَنَّ الْقَتِيلَ مِنْ عَدُوِّهِ. Allah mentioned explicitly in the Quran that the person that was killed was from his enemy. وَإِنَّمَا قَصَدَ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامُ إِغَاثَةَ الْمَلْهُوفِ الْإِسْرَائِيلِ. And that, so he was from Fir'aun's people, the one that was killed. And the one that was, there was an Israelite that was calling for help, malhuf. And so Musa alayhi salam intended ighatha, to give him help. فَوَكَزَ الْعَدُوء الْقَاهِرْ لَهُ بِنِيَّةِ دَفْعِهِ عَمَّنْ اسْتَوْلَى عَلَيْهِ. So wakaza is just to push. And so Musa alayhi salam pushed the enemy who was overbearing and being tyrannical with the Israelites, with the intention of just pushing him back. Dafa عَمَّنْ اسْتَوْلَى عَلَيْهِ, from what he was trying to do. فَصَادَفَ مَوْتَهُ مِنْ غَيْرِ عَمْدٍ. And so it resulted in the death without any intention. And then he said, and his statement, the statement of Musa alayhi salam, هَذَا مِنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ, this is from the work of shaitan. حُسْنُ أَدَبْ مِنْهُ, it's good adab. They have tawadu. When they seek forgiveness, it's just tawadu. There's no sin to seek forgiveness from. There's no sin to seek forgiveness from. And there's many, again, our tradition, I wish we had time, if we were to go through all of the ayat and ahadith and the events in the seerah and to show the ta'wilat. I mean, it's just amazing that, we'll finish this and maybe we'll mention something about the sinning, but the seeking of forgiveness. That it's husn al-adab. And then he says, because he's it's beautiful. Imam Sunusi says, how is it حسن الأدب؟ في نسبة الفعل المحبوب للشيطان إليه ولم يحبه الشيطان هنا لإيقاعه الكليم في معصية لأنه معصوم منها بل لتوهم الشيطان ذلك توهما أخطأ فيه وخاب فيه ظنه. So he says that it's good adab from Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam in ascribing this action that was beloved to Satan. He's ascribing it to Satan. But why was it beloved? He says Shaitan did not love it because Shaitan had caused Al-Kalim, Musa alayhi salam, to fall into ma'siyah, to fall into sin. لأنه معصوم منها, because prophets are protected from sin. بل لتوهم الشيطان ذلك توهما أخطأ فيه. But rather because Shaitan was deluded to think that. He was deluded to think he caused Musa alayhi salam to fall into sin, and he was wrong therein. And he had a wretched opinion. And then here, وَقَوْلُ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامُ, and then when Musa alayhi salam said, ظَلَمْتُ نَفْسِي, I wronged myself, فَاغْفِرْ لِي, so forgive me. جرى على المألوف من خوف الأنبياء والرسل عليه الصلاة والسلام من الله تعالى خوف هيبة وتعظيم وإن علموا عدم مؤاخذة من المولى تبارك وتعالى. Listen to this, that he says, Imam Sunusi says, when Musa alayhi salam says, I wronged myself, so forgive me, this is based off of what is the habit, the ma'luf, the way of the prophets with respect to their fear of Allah, not a fear of being taken to account for something wrong, but the fear of haiba and ta'zeem. It was just their knowledge of Allah, just their incredible awe-strickenness and just the grandeur of the divine and their veneration for the maqam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the, who Allah is, because they have the most ma'rifah of Allah. This is the thing, is that, when the Prophet ﷺ said in Sahih Bukhari that I am the most atqa of you, in Sahih Bukhari when he said I have the most taqwa of you with respect to Allah, what other trait did he conjoin it with of his? Inna atqakum billah wa, excuse me? No, he said that verily the most taqwa of you with Allah and the one with the most knowledge of Allah is ana. Inna atqakum billah wa a'lamakum, inna atqakum wa a'lamakum billah ana, or kama qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That he combined taqwa with knowledge, because the basis of their haiba, of fearing the station of their Lord and his power, was their knowledge of their Lord. It was not because of anything wrong they ever did. They just had the most ma'rifah of Allah. They had the most understanding and realization of who Allah is and His qudra subhanahu wa ta'ala and His awesome power. And so this is the haiba that they had. And this is what even in tradition of in our tradition of ihsan, that the scholars say that in the beginning, the person that's struggling to improve themselves, they go between raja and khawf. They vacillate between, they try to balance hope in Allah and fear of Allah, hope in His reward and fear of His punishment. But as a person draws closer to Allah, then it goes from mahabba and haiba, that the hope turns into love, and the fear of punishment turns into haiba. Again, this realization of the awesomeness and grandeur of their Lord. And they say that even beyond that the awliya, they get to a level of pure jamal and jalal. Then it's just a realization of divine beauty and a realization of divine majesty and rigor. And so if this is the way of the followers of prophets, ﷺ, then where do you think the prophets were with their realization of who Allah is, subhanahu wa ta'ala? Bismillah. And so their seeking of forgiveness is just an expression of their humility and an expression of realizing the station of their Lord. And our Prophet ﷺ, he would seek forgiveness 70 to 100 times a day, according to the Sahih Hadith. And he would say that he said in the Sahih Hadith, إِنَّهُ لَا يُغَانُ عَلَى قَلْبِي, verily that there is a haze that covers my heart. There is a haze that covers my heart. So I seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not a haze of something wrong. This is not a haze of ghafla. And think about it. The Prophet said ﷺ that verily my eyes sleep but my heart does not sleep. Also Sahih Hadith. Verily my eyes sleep but my heart does not sleep. Not for a moment in his life, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, was he unaware of his Lord. There was not a moment of his life, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he was unaware of his Lord. Okay? Not for a moment, even during sleep. And that's in Sahih Hadith, that his eyes sleep, his heart does not sleep, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And so how do we understand this haziness, quote unquote, around his blessed heart, sallallahu alayhi wasallam? That Imam al-Ghazali, he says that our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says that this in more than one place in the Ihya al-Madin. Imam al-Ghazali says, rahimahullah, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam is in continuous taqarrub ila Allah. At every moment he is drawing near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so at every new moment he is closer to his Lord. So when reflecting on that previous moment there was a distance that is now not there, because now he is closer. So from the vantage point of the new moment, reflecting on the previous moment, there is a sense of haze over the heart. And so for that he seeks forgiveness, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, 70 to 100 to how many times a day, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Okay, it's just his taraqqi, it's his ascent in his maqam, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And that's why Abu Hassan al-Shadili, he said that don't think it was a haziness of darkness, it was a haziness of light. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So, this is how we understand their seeking of forgiveness. And even in dunya affairs, we have to appreciate the maqam of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Uwais al-Qarni, he's in the conversation of who's the best of the tabi'een. He's in the conversation with Hassan al-Basri, with Muhammad Sirin. Uwais al-Qarni is there, and we could spend months talking about Uwais al-Qarni, Allah be pleased with him. But he told Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Ali, when he met them, he told them that you did not know the Prophet ﷺ except for his shadow. you did not know the Prophet ﷺ except for his shadow. Okay, now who is he speaking to? Umar ibn al-Khattab. If Umar goes down one way, Iblis is like, I'm out. I'm not going that direction. If there were to be a prophet after the Prophet ﷺ, who would it be? Umar ibn al-Khattab. But there's no prophet after the Prophet ﷺ. Who is Ali? Yani, what can we say about Sayyidina Ali? Karamallahu wajh. The gate to prophetic knowledge. The gate to prophetic knowledge. So Uwais al-Qarni, who is a tabi'i, is telling Umar and Ali, you did not know the Prophet ﷺ except for his dhil, except for his shadow. Like his reality you were not aware of. And did they say, do you know who we are? I'm Umar ibn Khattab, I'm the second. Ali is Ali. They put their heads down in humility, acknowledging that. They're acknowledging that. And we don't say it as a narration because it's so weak, but the ulama say he had no shadow. So if that's all they knew, then. But in any case, so even worldly affairs, that there's a ta'wil. So the date palms incident, many of us might have heard the date palms incident when some of the Ansar were doing the cross-pollination of the date palms. The best of creation passes by ﷺ and says that, you know, had you not done this, it would have been, why didn't you not do it? Or kama qal. And he found it strange. And so they did not do it. And the next year, what happened with the crop? It did not produce. And so the Prophet ﷺ says, you know better of your dunya. You are more knowledgeable of your dunya. And so do it your standard way. Okay, do the cross pollination. So the outward of it seems that the Prophet ﷺ had less understanding of their dunya than they did. A lot of scholars say that doesn't really make sense because he knew about, you know, pollination and that with dates and so they cite the other hadith that, and this is helpful for our theology, inshallah. We've covered some of this. That the other hadith in which one of the companions had roasted a sheep or a lamb, and so he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sahih hadith, nawilni dira'an, give me a forearm. And so because that was the favorite part of his of the animal, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his favorite part was the dira'. So he handed him, and so then he said, nawilni dira'an, second time, hand me a forearm. The Sahabi handed him. Then he says, nawilni dira'an, and the companion is confused, and he says, does the sheep have more than 2 forearms? And the Prophet ﷺ says, had you listened to me, you would have kept on handing me forearms as long as I asked for them. Had you listened to me, you would have kept on handing me forearms as long as I asked for them. Now, think about this. Why are we citing it here? That we studied occasionalism, and the reality of Tawheed in Islam is that causes do not have much to do with their effects other than normative. Normally they're just conjoined as occasions, right? They're just occasions. There's no ta'thir. They don't produce anything. And so that's the reality of Tawheed in its fullest realization is la fa'il illa Allah, that there is no agent in the cosmos except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the basis of miracles. So the prophets, alayhi salam, one of the reasons why they come with extra miracles, specifically for just companions. How many miracles can we count? Hundreds and hundreds, specifically in the presence of companions. One could ask why. They already believe. Isn't a miracle supposed to convince because there's 2 levels of Tawheed. The first level of Tawheed is just accepting the oneness of God as creator. This is the entrance to Islam. This is what the great miracle comes for, is to accept Allah as Lord and the Prophet, whichever Prophet, as messenger or prophet of that Lord. But there's a second goal of Tawheed. There's a second, Imam Ghazali says it's the second eye that needs to be opened. The first eye is just La ilaha illallah. The second eye is La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. The second eye of Tawheed is to realize there is no agency in the cosmos except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the only real agent of everything. And so the prophets, alayhi salam, they produce, Allah gifts them many numerous miracles just for the Sahaba to open that second eye. Is that these norms that we use to function day to day, the causation, the cause-effect relationship in the world, this can be broken, and realize that it's only Allah that's doing it. Had I kept on asking, you would have handed me forearms as long as I would have asked. Because Allah is creating the two forearms in the first place. It's not the blood vessels that are feeding it. Allah creates it. Allah creates every molecule in every body. And so Allah could have easily created a third forearm and a fourth forearm and a fifth forearm, etc., etc. So this is the prophetic tarbiyah of opening that second eye. So the people that were doing the pollination, their hearts were not ready. Some of them, they were not ready for that second eye to be opened. They were hung up with the means, causes and effects of the world. And so when he said you shouldn't do that, he is opening for them a vista, just like the third and fourth forearm and the fifth forearm, of breaking the norm, and still Allah creates results without the normal means that normally we see produce those results. And the Prophet ﷺ is allowing them access to a miracle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could tell in their hearts, some of them were reluctant. No, but if you don't pollinate, what's it going to produce? It might not produce. And so Allah saw that in their hearts, and so therefore did not allow the miracle to happen. And so the Prophet ﷺ says, you know better of your dunya, you know better of these causes and effects that you're still stuck in. Stick to it. It's better for you. I.e., your state right now, it's better just to stick with it. You're not open yet to what the reality that I can show you. This is what Shaykh Muhammad ibn Alwi al-Maliki says about that hadith. And it's a valid ta'wil because he's using other hadith to prove it. We know that these the causes and effects are not necessarily linked. And so this is, when the Prophet ﷺ opens a vista for the believer to start, so that second eye can be opened, then the person needs to let go of the sabab. The person needs to let go of the sabab. And we'll end with, before we do Q&A, how much time do we have? Yeah, we'll end with Bismillah. One or two more examples, and then inshallah, if there's any questions. But all of the things in the seerah, for example, Abasa wa tawalla, there's nothing in those verses that state the Prophet ﷺ did anything wrong. If you look carefully at those ayahs, there's nothing that states the Prophet ﷺ did anything wrong. Now reflect on it. The heads, the leaders of Quraysh, the Prophet ﷺ is doing what with them? He's already doing what with them? Giving them da'wah. Okay, so you have non-Muslims and an action that's already started, and the Prophet ﷺ is giving them da'wah, trying to get them to believe. Okay, a Muslim comes, a Sahabi, he's already Muslim, and he's blind, Ibn Maktoum, Allah be pleased with him, and he interrupts that for not Tawheed itself, but education in the religion. According to Sharia, which one has higher precedence? Teaching a Muslim to more knowledge in the religion, or conveying the message to a non-Muslim just to get them to believe? And it's not only better, it's wajib. So they say al-aham muqaddam min al-muhim. In our usul tradition, al-aham muqaddam min al-muhim. What's more important takes precedence over what's just merely important. And not to mention the Prophet ﷺ is already engaged in it. And not to mention that these are leaders and very influential people, that if they were to believe, it would not simply be one believer, but possibly an entire tribe. And the whole wave of events in Mecca would have shifted. So the Prophet ﷺ does nothing wrong. he continues in his da'wah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals those verses not as a suggesting that the Prophet ﷺ did anything wrong, merely revealing the inner states of those people. Allah merely revealed that the people you're giving da'wah to, they weren't gonna become Muslim. And the one that came to you, he was receptive. Revealing the inner states of a person is by no means suggesting the actor had done, the one doing it had done something wrong, right? And so this is the way that we interpret. Another example that with Sayyidina Adam as salam, that, and this is arguably the most confusing, because Adam as salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word asa in Surah Taha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Surah Taha, verse 115, that وَلَقَدْ أَهِدْنَا إِلَىٰ آدَمٍ مِّن قَبْلُ فَنَسِيَ وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا. And then that's an important verse to highlight, as well as later in the story, فَوَسْوَسَ إِلَيْهِ الشَّيْطَانِ, verse 120. That's important with respect to our conversation, and then every ayah is important, in the context of our conversation. And then verse 121, the end of which, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they ate from the tree, that وَعَصَىٰ آدَمُ رَبَّهُ فَغَوَىٰ. Okay, so how do we understand these ayat? That so the Imam Bajuri says that with the waswasa, shaitan did not actually affect the heart of Sayyidina Adam as salam. It was simply an outward form that happened. Okay, an outward form that happened. And the Adam as salam, when Allah says وَعَصَىٰ آدَمُ رَبَّهُ فَغَوَىٰ, so asa is from the same root as ma'siyah, and ghawa is from ghiwaya, which is, so these words, they're used in the Sharia for wrongdoing. These words are used. Their Sharia meanings, their meanings in the sacred law are for wrongdoing. Ma'siyah is used for disobedience. Ghiwaya is used for doing something incorrect, not opposite of rushd, of what's guided. So that the ulama mentioned that these are here, they're used not in their Sharia meanings, but in their linguistic meanings. Okay, in their linguistic meanings. What's the linguistic meaning? That a surat of mukhalafa. The linguistic meaning is a surah of mukhalafa. It is an outward, what's seen on the outward is contravention. What's seen on the outward is contravention. And so, and same thing with riwayah, what's seen on the outward is different from what was commanded. There's many, this is a very long conversation, but there's many ways, and this is our classical tafsir tradition, that first of all they say that, because we started with verse 115 for a reason, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when وَلَقَدْ أَهِدْنَا إِلَىٰ Adam, we made the covenant, the promise with Adam alayhi salam min qablu, from beforehand, فَنَسِيَ, but he forgot. فَنَسِيَ. So there's no sin in if someone forgets. So this is one explanation. Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, he forgot the order, and so then he ate from it, and then so the outward of it was the surah of something wrong, but the inward reality was that nothing wrong was committed. In the Sharia, it's not ma'siyah if one is forgetful. That's one interpretation. The other, they say, it's not even that. They say that there's a ta'wil that Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade the type of tree, a particular type of tree, the jins. But Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam understood it as just that particular tree. And so he ate from the fruit of another tree of that jins. And so he misunderstood, or he he assumed that it was just that particular, but not the jins, but the original command was for the jins, the entire category of that tree. This is another explanation. Third explanation, and they mention hasanatul abrar sayyatul muqarrabin, that the good deeds of righteous are the missteps of those that closest to Allah. And so the fact that Allah is using what seems to be such harsh language is in fact a testimony to the rank of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, that a slight misstep or a slight misunderstanding or a slight forgetfulness is called asa and ghawa. Like, you are too great, you are so great, that the most subtle of, is given that language. But there's another interpretation, and this one actually corresponds with the Sahih Hadith, that Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, at that time he was a Nabi, غير مشرع. He was not a Rasul doing tashri'. This is important. At that time he was a prophet, but he was not being an exemplar for followers. Okay, so when a Nabi is in that situation, it's possible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to decree for them to do something that the outward of which is wrong, or the outward of which seems wrong, but internally reveal to them to actually do it, and to command them to do it, such that there is no actual disobedience. Oh, what's the proof? From Quran and Sunnah, where's your dalil? Sayyidina Khidr alayhi salam. Sayyidina Khidr alayhi salam what did he do on the outward? He broke a person's boat. Poor people had a boat, he broke it. Haram in Sharia, that's the contravention. Musa alayhi salam's like, well, what did you just do? Then even more severe, he kills a young boy, innocent boy. He kills a boy. Contravention. Later, when he's asked to explain, he says, وَمَا فَعَلْتُ عَنْ أَمْرِي, I did nothing on my own accord. I did not, this is in Quran, explicit, Surah Kahf. I did nothing of my own accord. This is what Allah commanded me to do. And the dominant opinion is Sayyidina Khidr Islam is a Nabi. He was a Nabi. He was not doing tashri'. See, now he did not have followers that were emulating him, because that's impossible for a Rasul who's doing tashri' to no. But a Nabi that's not doing tashri', this is possible by the explicit wording of the Quran itself. So as an analogy, they say that one of the interpretations with Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam is that the similar thing happened, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to him internally to go ahead and do it because of the hikmah, because just like with Sayyidina Khidr alayhi salam, there's a maslaha, there's a benefit that would result from that, and that's what he explained. That's what he explained. Why did I break the boat? Why was I commanded to kill the boy? Because of these reasons. Similarly, there's a hikmah that Adam alayhi salam, our father, ate from the tree, because if it weren't for that, first and foremost, the dhuhur of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not have occurred. Just the coming of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so this was from the hikmah of Allah that it happened. Now let's go to the hadith. The hadith, Sahih hadith, says the ruh of Musa alayhi salam met with the ruh of Adam alayhi salam. And it's interesting that Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, because we're talking about Khidr. And he says, Ya Adam, why did you do it? Why did you do it? Had you not done it, we would have all been in Jannah. And what does Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam say? How could I not have done it? Allah decreed it. How could I not have done it when it was decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the Qadi, says Adam alayhi salam had the hujjah against Musa. Adam alayhi salam had the hujjah. He won the debate. He won the debate against Musa alayhi salam. So this ta'wil is in perfect harmony with our understanding of prophethood from the story of Sayyidina Khidr alayhi salam, and from the very testimony of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, that it's not far-fetched, that for a hikmah, Allah has a prophet do something the outward of which is contravened. But there's a wisdom, and there's many wisdoms in this. And this is also how they understand on the opinion that the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam were prophets. on the opinion that the brothers of Yusuf AS were prophets. Exact same thing. How could they throw Sayyidina Yusuf AS in the well? Because internally Allah showed them all of the benefit that would happen, and how Sayyidina Yusuf AS would rise in Misr and help all of the people that he helped and do all the tremendous good that he did. And so they were inwardly fulfilling the command of Allah, outwardly doing something that's a contravention. So there's a difference between, because linguistically, Surat al-Mukhalafa versus actual, what appears to be Mukhalafa versus actual Mukhalafa. And this is only in situations where it's a Nabi without followers, according to this opinion that's mentioned by theologians. Because like we started the discussion, if a prophet is a Rasul with followers that's being emulated, then not even a surah of Mukhalafa can occur. Not even a picture or the apparent Mukhalafa, contravention, can occur. The first time we hear some of these ta'wilat, it seems like, but again, we've cited verses in the Quran, in Surah Al-Kahf and Ahadith. It's much better. This is the aqeedah we want to die and meet Allah with. The aqeedah we want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with is that we affirm that the prophets and messengers are all infallible, and they never committed even khilaf al-awla, even what's better to avoid, whether as children before their revelation was given to them, or in any state. And it's much better to have this aqeedah then. So inshallah, then we'll do Q&A now. Bismillah. I think he has a mic for you, inshallah.
You mentioned at-tabi'u,
No.
and that this was an intense form. And then there's yuhbibkum. Is there something to be said for yuhbibkum as well?
There's tremendous things to be said about yuhbibkum.
Is there something related to at-tabi'u?
There's something related to what, sorry?
At-tabi'u, that the intense.
Like the language of it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I could try to check, inshallah.
Please go ahead about it. Yeah.
Fadlu,
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan. When you were bringing up Sayyidina Adam, when he ate from the apple, I was thinking of Nabi Yunus and how he, like this, okay. From how he outwardly seemed to leave his command of doing dawah to that city and was, swallowed by the whale. And I was going to think that at that moment he was swallowed, he was a Nabi without people following him, but he was a Rasul, so he had a message to convey, so that couldn't work. So what's the traditional ta'wil of what happened with Yunus AS? I guess that's always something that's I've accepted, as in he didn't do anything wrong, but I just can't get an interpretation that would kind of conform to some logical reason and basis.
Okay, inshallah, I'll read from Bismillah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. So let's do the next question while I have a passage here about that. I'll just read it straight from the words of our theologians. So if someone else wants to ask a question while I find it, inshallah. No.
While you were just narrating the hadith of the four leg of the chicken, it sort of made me think about the hadith, the one where the last phrase of which is "Aqidi wa tawakkali," and the message behind that is to take the means, and put your trust in Allah.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to say that comes in opposition to what you narrated, but I'm sort of just trying to understand. How can you also take the means without attributing cost to the means?
So very good question. So we have to take the means. Okay, so it's commanded by the Prophet ﷺ. He said, "I'qil wa tawakkal." He said, tie the camel and then rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one is the role of limbs, and the other is the role of the heart. Okay, so we teach we learn in our aqidah, fire doesn't burn. Okay, don't go touch fire. Okay, please. But so the limbs, the al-akhdh bil asbab min as-sunnah, that the taking the means and using them is from the sunnah. But that's what we do with our limbs. In the heart, so that's the tawakkul. That's the second half. So the i'qil is on the limbs, tawakkul is in the heart, and tawakkul is what we're speaking about. Is our realization of reality, of what we believe of reality. That هذا خلق الله. This is khalq. It is, which is a it's not the makhluk, it's the khalq, meaning the active doing of God. Like makhluk is what is created. Khalq, literally, and the default in tafsir is literal. Before you go to metaphor, you start with literal. You only leave literal if you have to. So هذا خلق الله would not mean this is what is created by God, like a watch that's wound and now it's just turning on its own. No, هذا خلق. This is the process, the active, in time, right now, creative fiat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's in the heart. Wallahu a'lam. Anything else? I know there. Okay, real quickly before the next question, that this is from. I'll just read the English. As for the story of Sayyidina Yunus AS, there is no explicit mention of sin. All that is mentioned is that he left the town and he was in a state of anger, and both of these have to do with his people. He left from his people and he left angry at them. Why? Due to their kufr, and as a hijrah away from people of kufr, people that rejected the message. And leaving the land of rejectors is from the greatest of ta'at. Leaving the land of rejectors it's a hijrah away from people that are denying. It's of the greatest of ta'at. Were it to occur from other than him, okay, so normally, that act normally, or if it had occurred from other than Sayyidina Yunus AS, it's the greatest of actions. Except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed his Prophet Yunus AS of this as a ta'deeb, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing ta'deeb to all the prophets. He's directly giving them their adab. Addabani Rabbi wa ahsana ta'deebi. The Prophet said, my Lord gave me my adab, and he did it perfectly. He was excellent in his granting me of adab. So Allah Ta'ala is doing ta'deeb, refining, أَنَّهُ لَيْسَ كَغَيْرِهِ فِي هَذَا, that Yunus AS is not like normal believers in this particular instance, in this issue. لِأَنَّهُ مِنْ خَوَاسِ حَضْرَتِهِ, because he is of the elect in the divine presence, who is sent for guiding humans to Allah. And so he specifically, because of his role, was to be there longer and put up with their rejection, and even though he had to see their dalala, their sinfulness. So he cannot, فَلَا يَتَصَرَّفْ هُوَ إِلَّا بِالْإِذْنِ الْخَاصِ لَا بِالْإِذْنِ الْعَامِ كَغَيْرِهِ. So he's not allowed to act without a specific permission, as opposed to the general permission that anyone, it's actually an act of worship to do this. So this is a ta'deeb and a ta'leem and a taryid lil mustaqbal. This is a refinement of adab and an education and a riyada, like a disciplining for the future. La aquba an dhanb. It's not a punishment or condemnation for any sin. Kama ya'taqiduhu man jahila, as the ignorant would think. وباطن ذلك التدريب يدل على الاعتناء العظيم بيونس عليه السلام والتشريف له. And the inward reality of this ta'deeb signifies the tremendous divine inaya, care and tender love, and tashrif and honoring of Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salam, because Allah himself is directly intervening to do his latif, his tarbiyah with all of the divine lutf. And he does not allow Yunus alayhi salam even to be with his own self. Allah comes in, intervenes with this ta'deeb. So he does not leave Yunus salam to himself or any one of his creation. And as for Yunus alayhi salam saying, La ilaha illa ant subhanaka inni kuntu min al-dhalimeen. As for Yunus alayhi salam saying, there is no God but you, glory be to you, I was amongst the dhalimeen. This is the same as Adam alayhi salam saying, Rabbana dhalamna anfusana. Our Lord, we have wronged ourselves. And we talked about this. We talked about this is a tawadu, it's a humility, and it's just the haiba. It's just realizing Allah's jalal, His majesty and rigor. It's based off of their knowledge of the divine, not that they've done anything wrong. And then, naam. So that inshallah answers the question. Straight from Sheikh Sanusi. Any other? Fadali? No.
Sorry, I'm trying to phrase my question so it doesn't show for other. Oh no, it's okay. I don't think I want to. I'm not sure if my question should be on my name.
Or maybe then you can ask me privately after, in case that is, if you're not. Any other questions? You have one?
So if we're in a situation like Yunus alayhi salam, where we're around people and you're trying to convey something, but they're not taking it, and they're just kind of continuing in their state, with that, is it better adab to leave, or is it measure the story to like bear that as long as possible? I mean, so like, where's the kind of armor for us to leave? Because like,
this is the one of the things our scholars talk about is that ilmul waqt. This is a science in our tradition, is to know the appropriate response for a particular situation. At that moment, what's the right thing to do? This is entire science, and there's no cut and paste, cookie cutter answer. Okay. So there are certain situations, depending on the person's state, depending on the state of those around the person, that they should leave. One protects their own. Al-aham muqaddam al-muhim. What is most important takes precedence over what is generally important. What's most important is our own personal salvation, our own personal taqwa, our own personal connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that's why in some situations, even if one's parents are saying, you can't leave because I want you to do this or that or whatnot, but the person genuinely fears that doing that would be a cost to their deen, be a cost, then they have to take the means to, if it's, leaving that environment or whatnot, such that they can preserve their deen. There's other cases though where a person, it's not a matter of their deen or whatnot, but that they don't want to be there anymore for what they've been giving da'wah and whatnot, and it might be more appropriate in that situation for them to stay and wait longer. But as the Sheikh said that we read, that in general, leaving an environment or leaving company, this applies even with company. Leaving company that is holding one down is not conducive to one's getting closer to Allah Ta'ala. It's of the greatest of acts of obedience. It's of the greatest of acts of obedience. So it's situation specific. One should always consult people of knowledge and piety, and people of wisdom as well. Inshallah, wallahu a'lam. Okay, inshallah. So, sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad an-nabiy wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.